All right, so Richard, welcome to Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you very much for having me on it.
Hey, no problem at all. It's going to be a really interesting one for me because I saw you on a video or an interview, I think, with one of my friends, and I was like, what the hell is this? I've got no idea what your business is, how it works, why people are buying into it. So I'm really interested to find out about your business and yeah, what it's meaning for the world in general. But before we dive into all of that, I think it'd be great to start off like I do with all of my guests and just find out really what was your first job after leaving education.
I had to think after leaving education. So my first
can be before if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote it down because the first job was when I was 13, paper round. And then since that point, I've never not had a job, even during and after education. So yeah, always been in work or like wanting to work to have my own money so I can have a bit more freedom, basically.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't think I was working at 13. I think I managed to get to 14 or 15 and I was forced to get a job to pay my way at home a little bit. But
yeah, well, I think back then if you wanted like a Nokia 3310 or something because you want to play Snake on it, then you needed to get the cash in. I subbed some of it out to my sisters as well, so that's always been a bit of a businessman.
Yeah, that's really smart. You're the second person who said they did that. Somebody I've interviewed before, they said that they got one paper round and then they took up other paper rounds because they were unreliable paper boys. But what he did is he just subbed it out to his friends and his family and got them going out there and doing it for him. And it just took a cut off of every single one. And yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. But do you feel like you've always had kind of a bit of an entrepreneurial drive then from a younger age?
Yeah, I can remember when eBay first came about. So my dad had an eBay account first came about. I remember I bought like 45 watches off there, and then I went and sold them at school. So sort of Del Boy type thing. Sell the watches because you buy them in bulk off eBay. Not many people knew what eBay was, so you're able to like buy at really, really cheap prices, sell them at like you buy them for like £5 a watch, you sell it for £20 a watch or something like that, and it's worth maybe £50. And then I ended up having a bolt on, sell some of the watch. It doesn't fit. I'm like, I can fit it for you for £5 or something like that. so it ended up. I didn't think about that. I sold all these watches, and they didn't fit people. They bought it for presents. Oh, we need it fitting. So I bought a tool off eBay to fit like watches and stuff. So yeah, I've always had like an entrepreneurial side.
Yeah, wow. I mean, selling watches at school. How did you know that was going to be a good market?
I didn't really. It's just that the watches were so cheap. And I brought one to try it out, and they looked good. And someone said, "Oh, where did you get that from?" And then a few people started asking it, and asked about it, word of mouth. And then I just brought a whole box. So I think that's like the first time I'd done something entrepreneurial. Just went with a gut feeling. I don't think there's like any at that age. I don't think there's any analysis or anything like that. It's just just go with it. And when you're earning like £10 for a paper round, anything's better than that, right?
Yeah, that's true. I know people at my school, it was more sweets. That was the thing. It wasn't so high end as watches. It was like sherbet from the local market and and things like that. But yeah, no, that's cool. So okay, let's move on to after education then. Kind of what happened? I mean, did you go through university and things like that, or?
Yeah, so I sort of went to university, did civil engineering, so nothing to do with like business really. Sort of guided because my dad was like, right, you need a good degree, off you go do civil engineering. I sort of said to him, is there any maths in it? Because I really hate maths. He went, no, there's no maths in it. And then there's more maths in a civil engineering degree than in a maths degree. So that was horrendous. But so I failed my first year at uni, realised that actually I should probably work a bit harder. The uni let me back in and complete my master's, my civil engineering degree. At the same time, I got sponsored while I was there by an engineering company. So I went to the uni at Loughborough, and I got a summer placement, Easter placement type job in Leicester, just like half an hour away. So during uni, I didn't have any downtime, so I was either at uni working, or in the holidays I was working to get more cash at like a sponsorship engineer company. And then when I'd come back from that engineering company, I'd then go do a night round at Domino's. So I've always had like that, so I guess, work ethic to do quite hard work. I did that for the 5 years at uni. In the last year of uni, I managed to get opened up the Times 100 top graduate employers, and PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers at the top. So I thought I'd apply for them, and I got a graduate scheme with them. So as soon as I finished uni, had a few months off and travelled to Australia, and I came back onto the PwC graduate scheme. So
yeah, wow, that's cool. So why civil engineering? Was that?
It sort of wasn't my choice. My dad was like, look, it's a good degree. You get to design buildings, roads and bridges. Sounds more glamorous than it is in reality. It's still just counting numbers and doing math equations and stuff. So, but it sounded better than it was, and it was a good degree, and it sort of held, you could go off into different types of work. You didn't have to become a civil engineer, so it just gave a bit more flexibility when you come out, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it's interesting you say it was your kind of father's idea, and I think a lot of people go through that, right? They have this moment of indecision when they're young, don't really know where they can direct themselves, and kind of just go where the parents kind of guide them towards.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a massive fan of the education system. It's sort of like Pythagoras is not going to help you get a business loan. Learning about, I don't know, it's just like in the education system, sort of, you have to learn, you have to prove that you can do it. So you can prove that you are able to do that skill set, and therefore they'll give you a sort of a higher paid qualified job. But it's a sort of like, if you're not doing great exams, how are you ever going to be rewarded? It's always the same type of people that are rewarded. So I'm not sure there's like that practical stuff that you learn at schools that's actually useful. I probably learned more in my first year, in my first 3 months running Get a Drip than I did in my entire life beforehand. And then prior to that, it'd probably be when I was at PwC looking at different companies, seeing how they worked. And then any stuff I learned at uni and A-level in school, not used ever. So I don't know, I'm not a big fan of the education system as it is anyway, because I didn't really like school.
Yeah, it's fair enough. And I wonder, how long were you with PwC for?
So I was on the graduate scheme. So I was with them for 5 years. I did the 3 years in audit.
Yeah.
Don't work in audit.
I don't think there's that many people that like it.
Yeah, no, I didn't even know what audit was. So I was a civil engineer, applied to the PwC graduate scheme. I was like, oh, great. They've got an opening at St. Albans near me. I'll just apply for it. And I just remember I passed the final interview, and I didn't even know what an audit was. So yeah, that's it. That was interesting. But I did my 3 years with them, got my sort of chartered accountancy qualification, and then I moved to the London office, sort of real estate, financial due diligence type stuff for a couple of years, and then after that, when I started Get a Drip.
Yeah, wow. This is all sounding very far away from what your business is now. So how do talk me through your career a little bit and how you got to the point where you are now?
Yeah, so in terms of PwC, it's quite standard, right? They've got 100 different levels, and you sort of go level 1, 2, 3, 4, get your chartership, go 5, 6. So I sort of just worked my way up through like the corporate ladder, but was not. I'd only ever probably give 20 or 30% of what I was actually capable of at work, because it's not something I really want to do. And I think most people are probably in that place when they don't realise it and go, actually, what am I doing here? Why do I actually want to do this with my life? And you look at, like, say, a partner at PwC, and you're like, do I want to be in that position in 10 years? No. Am I going to get to it? Probably unlikely, because I'm not able to give myself 100%, because it's not something I really love to want to do. So that was the sort of career. Get a Drip was sort of, I'm type 1 diabetic. So it's more finding something for my own needs to sort of boost my health and wellness, was essentially Get a Drip. So I mean, being at PwC is great. It taught me lots of skill sets, how to build business plans, how to look at businesses, how to use Excel, how to do management presentations, how to hold meetings. Like, the array of skill sets I got from them was amazing, and I was able to use all of that to bring over to starting my business. And then the quality and expectation of PwC is like up here. So I'd always perform, like, you're trained to perform to the best. So yeah, that's the skill set I brought from PwC, but it has nothing to do with Get a Drip. So.
No, that's it. But it's interesting what you're saying there. You've learned a lot of skills from being there, but actually wasn't where your heart is. And I think there's a lot of people out there that like that. And I've actually interviewed myself a lot of people that come away from a PwC or a Deloitte or someone like that, because they don't enjoy it so much, because they've perhaps pigeonholed rather than given an opportunity to explore different avenues of business. It's from what I understand from some of these people, that's your role and you just do that, and you kind of you follow this path to that point, and if you don't want to go to that point, you kind of stuck there, or you have to move on, don't you? You know, you're stuck on that path, or you have to move on. And
yeah, exactly. You could continue working at like the big corporates, or you then go work with one of your clients at the big corporates, but it's still the same. In there's not that much innovation and like thinking outside the box. It's very much limited in what we can do.
yeah,
But the skill set's amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, the training there's amazing. The heights of expectations amazing. Because they're like the top graduate employer, they employ all the best people. Therefore, it's really competitive. So everyone around you is like just up, like, performing at that level. So you get used to performing at that level, and you take all that skill set away. So when you go, it's no wonder that a lot of people will leave Deloitte's or PwC's or wherever, because they've just had this amazing skill set, and they've had like been operating to such a high standard. So when you leave to do something, you're always going to do it. It's the best you can do.
yeah. And when I say I've interviewed people, that's within engineering companies or oil and gas industry and things like this, and you tend to see them go into CEO type roles because they've got that really kind of good base of business skill sets that are ingrained into them, and as you say, being performed at a very high level. So that's definitely going to hold you in good stead then. So how and why did you start Get a Drip?
So Get a Drip, that's a good question. So originally, so diabetic hangovers are the worst. Like, you think a hangover is bad, add diabetes in, and it's just the worst. Like, the worst hangovers you've ever had. And I was like, I still want to go out. I just thought to myself, there's got to be a way that I don't have to feel absolute crap for a week. There has to be a way to feel better. So I started Googling it, and I found this thing called like the Hangover bus in the States, and it's a bus that drove around Vegas giving people drips the day after, so they felt back to normal again. So that was my original intention. I was like, right, this can help my diabetes hangover. All the people in the city, they don't want hangovers, they're all going to have a drip, and they're going to be wanting to feel fresh the next day. I'll have a bus that drives around London, and people get on with a hangover and they get off at work, so they get a travel ride to free to work with it. That was like the original idea. So then I started looking at places in the UK that had it, and then I discovered that actually it's more than just like a hangover drip. Like, vitamin drips are like this whole like hangovers sort of give it a bad name, really. They tarnish it a bit, so you push that to one side. The vitamin drips have so many sort of health benefits that you can't officially say, but if you Google around them, there are tons of health benefits around them. So I sort of then going, well, actually, I had this idea. It sort of morphed when I was researching. So I spent about 2, 3, 4 years researching it before I launched. Like, I morphed actually into this idea of vitamin drips. I went and tried a few in London, and the price point was about £1,000, £300 or £400. I was like, down Harley Street. Clearly, there's a lot of celebs and other people that are doing it, and they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. That's sort of the research, and sort of why I started, is actually to help myself. At the time, I'd probably, as a diabetic, I'd end up in hospital 2 or 3 times a year. So there'd be like neurovirus would come around. I get neurovirus, and that's it. Bang, body can't cope, in hospital, give me a drip. Or this happened, get this illness, or it's giving me a tummy. But my immune system's just not great. So I was like, there has to be something I can do about that. And since I started Get Drip, I actually have been to admit to hospital once, and that's like 5 years now. Whereas before it'd be red. I don't know whether it's working too hard, being run down all the time, immune system, all of that stuff, and plus my medical conditions as well probably affected it. But that's essentially why I started Get Drip.
Okay, so what go back to those hangover drips then that are going around in the US. What's actually in them?
So it depends. There's like different people put different stuff in them, but the main thing is just the basic one is just a bag of saline. It's got all your salts or Hartmann's. It's got like your electrolytes fit to your body, but essentially it's a litre of fluid. I mean, people do different sizes of the bags as well, but let's just say it's a litre of fluid that goes into your body, straight into your blood system. Biggest cause of hangovers, dehydration. So bypassing your gut, you're going to restore your electrolytes. It's a third of your daily intake for the day within like half an hour.
Yeah, it's interesting because I kind of sussed that one out myself, that electrolytes were good for getting fluid into your body. So I very rarely have hangovers, but of course, occasionally do have one. But but when I do, what I'll do is I'll have they're like Baroccas, but they're for cyclists. I think it's High Five or something like that they're called. But I just pop a couple of those in, and I had generally found that they are really good for me to relieve the issues that come from having a hangover, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not perfect, but I know it kind of helps me on that path to recovery. But I'm guessing what these drips then are kind of like an amped up version of that get into the system quicker. I mean, how what's the kind of
Yeah, so like parking hangovers aside, basically, yeah, it's all about now. It's about health and wellness. So it's all about what you absorb, not what you eat. The amount of times we have a client come into the clinic, they've got the perfect diet, they're on the perfect supplements, they're eating nutritionally balanced food. We prick their finger, put a bit of blood on a machine. 15 minutes later, it tells us their vitamin D levels. Oh look, you're deficient. So,
yeah.
like, we're doing a bit of research at the minute. We've got about 1,000 results, and we're looking at like that. But like 95% of people are deficient in vitamin D. So, if all these people are eating the right foods, they're getting outside. This is all year round as well. It's not just in winter when there's not much sunlight. But like, if they're doing all of this, they're still deficient, and that's just vitamin D. You could probably argue it's the same for all the different classes. And so, it's more what we look at is it's more about what you absorb rather than what you eat, because you can eat the right foods, but if the food's over farmed, if your DNA is missing, so we do DNA testing to look at people's DNA. If your DNA is missing certain genes, you can't absorb certain foods. If you're not eating the right food types and like stuff, there's like studies that show like 100 potatoes is equivalent to like one potato X amount of years, like 50 years ago. The food just doesn't have the vitamin C in it used to. I think there's a stat 23. You'd have to eat 23 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin A from one orange from the 1950s. So like the food population's gone up. We're having to overfarm. Where food moves around sources, and basically people just aren't getting the right nutrients into their blood system. So that's sort of where we come in, because we can do blood testing, we can do gut testing, we can do DNA testing, we can do medical histories and stuff, and then we can really tailor the product, but it's delivered right into their blood system. So it bypasses all this malabsorption and gut issues. Like out of the 5 steps to get into your blood system, it's step 5. So it bypasses all of that, and you get 100% of the dose into your blood.
Yeah, it's starting to make more sense to me now. I can see it, but I want to dig into that a little deeper in a moment. But before we do, I just want to kind of find out. Okay, so you've done this research and understanded, got to a point where you're understanding the opportunity. How did you take the step to move away from employment into starting up this business, and how did you find it?
So I did absolutely everything I could before I handed in my notice. There's one point I was doing this market research trying to find out about different companies, because a lot of them are medicinal products. It was really hard at the start to get information on prices. So I was doing a lot of research, and like one of the directors called me into the office and was like, "Oh, we've had this email with, what's this vitamin drip?" I was like, "I've done some like market research, but sent it off for the wrong email. The email's
Oh
on
no.
And it's just like, oh yeah. So that's when I started to think, oh, it's starting to clash now a bit with work. I'd work really hard. Like if there's a project on, I could work till midnight or 1 a.m. But then when there's not a project on, any downtime or evenings or weekends, I'd spend on the business plan, market research, trying to test the idea. So I did as much as possible before I then handed in my notice. I think I handed in my notice and I finished in September, and the business started trading in October. So literally, I did it right. I planned as much as I could right up to the point before I launched. And that included stuff like we were trying to go around to find locations for the business, and you'd speak to landlords and then think, what the hell? Like imagine, like we've been around, we're in like big shopping malls now, but back then it's like no one had done this on the high street. So it's like, what? No thanks, not in my shop. So no one would give us space. So then what we had to do is we had to make a van. So literally we built a clinic on wheels.
Right.
Because that meant that we could drop it in different locations and test the idea. It's the cheapest way to test the idea, because we couldn't just pitch up outside King's Cross in a tent and go, oh, who wants to try a drip? But there's certain regulations and health and safety issues that need to be adhered to. So that's how we sort of started. So we got to the point that we'd designed the van was ready to go. We've got a location, we've built the business plan, we've got the Virgin startup loan. I'd interviewed the nurses, I had the team ready to go. All of that was done while I was still at PwC.
Yeah, wow.
And only then, once I had a start date and the first training date, I then handed my notice.
How confident did you feel that this was going to be successful?
100%. I think you have to feel 100%, right? So I think that's sort of a mindset. Sort of, fixed mindset, growth mindset type thing, which I'm a massive fan of. But you've got to believe it's going to happen. Every entrepreneur, I mean, there's a 90% chance it won't happen, but still you're going to go into it believing 100% it's going to work. There's no way there's a doubt in your mind if not. You wouldn't do it, you'd come up with another idea, I guess.
Yeah, really good point. So from that van then, how did you get to be in kind of shop fronts, or in a physical location or static location, and regulations? I mean, you mentioned them. What sort of regulations or hoops did you have to jump through to be able to have this this business there?
Many. So it's within the aesthetics industry, if you want to call it that. The sort of private medical, and you've got like the CQC who operate healthcare practices. They were, that wasn't very clear when we first launched whether it was CQC regulated or not. They've now only just confirmed last 14th of December gone that it is, and they've given IV drips as an example of the scope that this is actually regulated. But before that, it's a bit like, are you or aren't you? But we've got regulated with them anyway, just because it's better to do so. Shows that you get stamped adhering to the right standards. You've got like the medical and healthcare regulation and authority, and you've got the advertising standards agency. Nurses, they're bound by their nursing NMC, and you've got doctors bound by their regulation. So it's a whole host of sort of regulatory bits, and we knew people were doing it, and it is possible. So you just spend a lot of time sort of getting that right. It does change a lot. But in terms of going from the van to so we had the van, no one let us have a unit. Box Park were the first people that said, oh yeah, we're Box Park Shoreditch. Sort of quite at the time, quite a friendly place. I guess other places are up and coming now, but at the time Shoreditch was really sort of trending place to be, where new stuff like this would come about. So we asked for a unit there. They said yes. So essentially we put the van, parked it on my mum's drive, and then we were in Box Park. So we fitted out our first unit there. That was successful, and I think someone from Westfield came past and said, oh, we really like, I've seen your place at Box Park while I was out the weekend. Can we come and put you inside Westfield, London? So we're like, yeah, yes, please. So we went and raised a bit of investment. So I did a bit of raising. When I first started, I sold some shares and bought a bit of investment on, and then when we went to Westfield to pay for this new fancy, like fully real copper kiosk, because we wanted to show off, like this is going to be the first one that we put in a big shopping centre. So yeah, Westfield sort of said, can we have you in? And after that, it's just, we have all the landlords. There isn't a week goes by where 3 or 4 different landlords don't sort of contact me, sort of roll out across their network. So after that, wow. Canary Wharf happened, and then Westfield Stratford happened. And then,
wow. So I think the first thought I had when I heard about this was, who's using your drips and why? You know, what I mean. If you feel you've got, generally what in my perception of what happens is when people feel they feel a bit low on energy or something like that, they go to kind of like maybe Baroccas and stuff like that, and then they go to the doctors maybe if it's a bit more serious. So I get what you're saying. You're getting people a shortcut into step 5, right, when they actually feel better really quickly. But yeah, who started coming to your site and to your van, and why? What were their reasons for it?
It's such a good question. Everyone, basically. There's so many people that have. So let's take B12. B12, you can give it an injection in the arm. And the NHS will give it to you monthly, but you have to be really deficient, right? The NHS isn't there. So we're talking about like optimum health and nutrition, and like you're like it's not black and white. It's not you are deficient, yes or no. There's grades of deficiency. So like if you're deficient in vitamin D per NHS standards, you'll probably get rickets. That they're there to stop you having such a deficiency that you won't get rickets. However, you're still going to be deficient per our scale, and then there's sufficient, and then there's like good, and then there's optimum. And so that's the whole scale of every type of vitamin there is. Just vitamin D as an example, B12. So you go to the NHS. The NHS is there to help people when they're critically ill or acutely ill. They're not there to help you. If you've got low vitamin C, you have scurvy. But if you have low vitamin C but not low enough to have an impact needing the NHS to intervene, then what do you do? Then you can go to your Baroccas and stuff. But a lot of people will take these tablets and don't feel better. They have our drips instantly. They feel better. You go measure their bloods. They can see the effect straight away on the levels. Word of mouth is a big thing. There's a lot of people in the UK that have various different deficiencies, and a lot of people sort of have hacked their own health and they know their own health in and out. And they'll come to us telling us exactly what they need, and here's these medical things, and I know I need this, and I need this and this. We do some stuff around DNA testing. So basically, you're testing DNA, and if you're missing certain genes, you can't absorb the nutrients from your diet and supplements. So then what do you do? The only way to do that is to bypass it and go intravenous. Stuff, vitamin D blood test. If we're testing people's blood for £30 or whatever it is, get the result in 15 minutes. Everyone's deficient. You're going to be like, oh man, I'm taking all these supplements and I'm still deficient. So then you have an injection because you know it's going to last for 3 months and you get a high dose. That's
going to be my next question. Actually, is how long is this effective for?
It's completely variable for like every person's. Your lifestyle. If you're going out every single night on the lash, it's going to be completely different to someone that doesn't. You've got underlying medical conditions. It's completely. This again, it's different. Your DNA is different. Everything is completely different. So it's tailored. Some people need it more than others. Most people will come to us like when they. So a lot of people might go, "Oh, I've got cold and flu season. I've got cold and flu. I feel absolutely rubbish. I can't get out of bed. I'm going to go get a drip." So you'll see a lot of people around that time of season just want to pick me up because they've got that unwell, but they're also taking all these supplements as well. So a lot of people don't notice any. If you ask if you actually stop taking your supplements, do you actually notice a difference?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my wife has no thyroid, so vitamin D is.
Thyroxine is she on then?
Yeah.
I'm on underactive thyroid as well, so it comes with the diabetes. So.
Yeah, alpha calcidol and all that kind of stuff she takes because we'd gone traveling for our honeymoon, and there was one point where we'd been drinking and a bit dehydrated and stuff like this, and in the morning she kind of started to have a bit of a seizure because of the lack of vitamin D. So I can see that in that scenario in particular for her, that would have been great to have had a drip and not worry about, because she'd forgotten to take the tablets the night before. Yeah. Sorry, I should have said because we were drinking, but
key factor there.
Yeah. But yeah, I could see where that could really, especially if you're going traveling, to know that you're kind of covered for that period of time or for a certain amount of time. That's quite beneficial. But just in general day-to-day life, I know every single night she has to take these tablets, and it might just be quite nice for her lifestyle not to have that, just to have it once a quarter. She's used to having blood tests anyway because she's so the injections, it's not an issue for her. So you've got me thinking now. Maybe we're recording this on Valentine's Day, so maybe that's a Valentine's Day present I get for her.
You go to the gift card shop. Look, we'll probably get you in anyway as a favour for having us on. So, it's all types of people. You couldn't narrow it down. You obviously we have like big celebrities that come through to us, like huge names, like 50 million followers on Instagram type thing. And then we've got sort of like people that work hard, they're in the city. They're people that live in cities who get more pollution. They want stuff like glutathione to detox more. People might have skin conditions. Glutathione is known a bit C good for that, and for collagen and production, stuff like that. So literally, there's so many different types of people that come to us, but they go through our doctors and nurses, and they'll end up having a tailored package. We've got a list of like, these are all the different vitamins, here's all the therapeutic indications, and here's all the medical histories, and this is what that means. So it's all tailored to each person, but you'd be amazed the type of the variation of our clients is humongous.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm certainly learning a lot about this new world. It's completely new to me. I'm perhaps because I'm out in the sticks, maybe, but I'll
tell you, during COVID, I was taking this well-known branded name of vitamin D tablet. So we just brought out the injections, we brought out the instant testing. So we're like, right, let's do some trials. And so I took this super high dose tablet every single day for 3 months over summer, so the sun was out, and my vitamin D levels plummeted week on week, month on month. And I was like, so it's all about what you absorb into your bloodstream. And I think there'll definitely be this big sort of reckoning in the next because there's so much going into health and wellness at the minute. There's loads of health tech companies. You've got free where they can do blood tests at home. Let's get checked, do blood tests at home. People are starting to get more information. It comes onto apps, and then suddenly people are going to start going, hang on a minute, I'm taking your vitamin D supplement every day and my level's going down. What's that about? Oh, why is it not optimum? And people will start to realize that actually the quality of the supplements out there is actually quite poor, like 90% of them anyway.
Yeah, you're right. the wearable tech is going to help us to know our bodies better, isn't it? In the long run. As COVID came in, I saw an article. I was talking about this is potentially a good time for governments to, install wearable tech or help the general public to preempt when they might get a virus or something like this by having wearable tech. And that seemed like a good idea. And there's a whole kind of political debate as to whether or not that was right or not. But that's where people's minds are, right? Is to be able to self-diagnose at some point in the future, right? With technology. And you're right. If you can kind of see that it's happening, people are going to want to have a quicker solution to that, or a more effective one than drugs, which at the minute we're just kind of trusting, aren't we, without knowing the actual details. So I can see there's real potential.
I've got this fancy little ring that I wear, and it tells me like your oxygen levels, your heart rate. You put it on the whole time, helps you sleep, and like that's the sort of technique. Also got like the iWatch, it does all that as well. So and then I'm diabetic, so I've got a sort of sensor plugged on here, it tells me my sugar levels. So like all of that will get plugged in. It's always a strange one in this country because we have the NHS. Everyone thinks, oh, if I'm ill, I'll just go to the NHS. But nowhere else in the world has that free healthcare system. A lot of countries, say like Switzerland, you pay in your insurance, £100, £200 a month, whatever it is, and you get the standard of care is suddenly up here. Suddenly they are able to look at optimum levels, and if people are healthy and have these optimum levels, the long-term stress on the NHS will be less. The long-term people are going to be healthier when they're older. There's going to be less, it's better for the environment. There's loads of the amount of sort of environmental impact and everything else when someone's in hospital, each day in hospital, the amount of equipment being used and time and resource. If you could have a healthier elder population, then that's going to be a good thing for everyone. But at the moment, the NHS it does a good job. But what it does is helping those that are really ill. But what about those that feel crap all the time but they're not ill? And it's sort of like a lot of people go to their GP or I'm overweight, or eat 3 bits of fruit a day and like go to the gym. It's like easy enough to say, like, but actually doing it and putting stuff in place, like, yeah, this health tech will obviously help push all of that forward.
Yeah, sure. So when did you start Get a Drip?
October 2017 is when we actually launched. So that's when the van opened and we took our first sale. And then before that, I spent a few years obviously working on it in the background.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, October 2017 is when we launched.
Yeah, okay. And you're now a franchise business.
Yeah. Look, I even got our BFA certificate arrived the other day. So you can't see it's blurry.
Fantastic. It's a bit blurred, but yeah.
We got the stamp.
Excellent. So how long ago did you franchise?
So we started looking into franchise in 2018, 2019. So there's a consultancy called Ashton's, I'd recommend for anyone looking at franchising. And we spoke to 3 or 4 consultants, and then we went, right, let's go with Ashton's. And sort of at that time, we had 1 clinic that had been running. We were having hundreds of applications for franchising. Basically, people see the idea, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to put it in my hometown. I want to put it in the city. I want to be the first to do it in this country. And so we were getting all these applications, and we're like, oh man, we need to franchise, because like we're not a health tech, we're not a tech company. So if you want to scale a bricks and mortar business, the only way really to do it quickly and financially sustainably is franchise. So yeah, we started looking into it, but we weren't quite ready. So we went away for a couple of years, built the model out, tried to test run a few other models to see if they'd work, like having hundreds of technicians or like having clinics. And after that, we then said, right, we'll start with our franchise. I think we've been going a couple of years now. So 2020 is when we actually launched the first franchise, and now some COVID, obviously there's a break in the middle, but most of our franchisees that are live have been running for about a year or so.
Yeah, wow. And it's quite interesting listening to you talk, because I'm getting the sense you're very analytical in what you're doing, and I guess that ties into kind of like your early career, right, where you're going through that. Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting that your product sort of seems far away from it, but when you dig down, it is about that. It's about analyzing what's the current state of play and what's the solution to get into that healthier lifestyle. And yeah, it's quite interesting talking to you and kind of seeing that all on earth, really. But what's the future then for the business? What's the future for the brand that you see?
So tonight I'm flying out to Rotterdam, so we're opening our first clinic in Holland.
Cool.
Tomorrow. So international, definitely. So we've got Ireland are opening their second clinic with Brown Thomas. So Brown Thomas is owned by Selfridges, so essentially Selfridges in Ireland. That's opening the week after that, their second clinic. So we're starting to sell overseas. We're starting to sell in the UK. We get something like 100 applications a month.
Wow.
Crazy. Even like today, like 10. I see them come in on the lead board. So yeah, just expansion now. We sort of set up our franchise model. We know how it works. We've got other surprises like warehouse, pharmacy type stuff in the background as well, sort of help secure supply chain. So yeah, no, we've got all of that coming. It's just now rolling it out essentially. We've built a really good franchise team as well, built a support team. So we've built all the infrastructure ready to go, and now it's just rolling it out. So yeah, I think UAE, Saudi, Lithuania, a few to name that are like quite far down the funnel with us.
Yeah, cool. So in terms of the types of people that you're generally looking for, who are they? Are there people that are in the health industry themselves already, or are they? So
we've got 3 types of franchises. So we went through so many, I just laughed because we spent ages getting tons of models, because we'll try anything as a startup. We'll trial anything to find the right fit, and we're not afraid of stuff failing, trying different stuff. So what we have now is what works, which is 3 models. So in the UK, we've got a mobile model. So if you're a nurse or doctor and you want to sort of do this, drive around to people's houses. So in London, we've got 3 mobile franchisees that we get a lead come in and we pass on to them. They go to visit people's houses. Obviously, if you're hungover, for example, you don't want to make get out of bed, just have your drip in your bed. So we have this mobile, but not only that, it's sort of a low-cost model. So you're not got what's outlay for clinics and sort of fixed costs. If you're a nurse and you want to change your career, you might not have that $500,000 that experienced franchisee might have. So it gives them an entry to market. So we're getting that the people that are in the health industry, they're qualified to do it. Low-cost model for them, and we enjoy working with them as well. Then we've got sort of a concession model. This is if you've already got a clinic and you want to add our branded drips into your clinic. So you might be any sort of a dentist or an aesthetics clinic or something else, and you want or a pharmacy, and you want to sort of add this sort of niche little branded thing as a side. So we have that's what we call a concession model. And then we've got the full clinic, which is like you take a full clinic, you kit it out, and you copy essentially what we offer.
Yeah. Wow. Again, I didn't really think of the different kind of ways that you could have it. I was thinking is a clinic and that's it. But yeah, it makes sense that you go out to people's houses and do it for people that can't move, maybe for whatever reason, or are unable to go into town. And I guess were you doing that sort of thing during COVID? Was that something?
Yeah, so yeah, we've always done it. So we've always done call outs, because there's always been can I have the drip at home? Can I have the drip at home? So we've always done call outs. During COVID, we did something called doorstop. We had all the full PPE, of course, and people come to the door. Like our regular clients that need this, their monthly B12. Once we've gone, let them down. GPs were only doing urgent calls. So suddenly, actually, we had a lot of requests come up because the GPs suddenly are telling down the people that need their B12 shot. They might have pernicious anemia or something, which makes you feel like horrendous if you've got that. But so they're wanting their B12 injected. So we did something like doorstop. So they come to the doorstop and we'd inject them in the arm, get back in the zip car we hired, and then drive to the next person's house. And like, so yeah, we had to like think outside the box a bit for COVID. But.
Yeah, but the reason I was kind of asking is it's quite a flexible model. I guess if you did have a clinic and it needed to, people couldn't come in for whatever reason, then there's this other option or other way to run the business, I guess, and still make it work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the way we do it is we've mapped out the UK into territories using a franchise mapping company, and then we sell different territories. If it's city centre, so Manchester city centre, Birmingham city centre, places that are going to come this year, they're reserved for clinics only because they need to have that clinic presence. But then if you're in these sort of outer territories, we're more than happy to have them as mobile.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, look, I want to move on now and sort of change the questioning slightly over to the more standard ones that I ask everybody, but I like to because I think you find some interesting stories in here. So my first one is what kind of funny, strange or weird stories have you had in your career? Whether that's with PwC or anyone or what you're doing currently.
Funny stories. I could tell you, I'm a bit of a rebel, so there's tons of funny stories out there. Stuff I don't know if I should say my staff will start being like, oh, look, if he does it, it'll be fine. But I remember, I've always got this flashback of this memory when I was at Sainsbury's. So I used to stack it, like the fresh food at Sainsbury's, and I had this guy, Jag, that used to work. Gag used to work with me, and I never once he was there. For some reason, I decided just to launch a yogurt at him in the back area, and it hit him and it exploded all over him. And then the picture around the corner was like the store manager. That was a funny one because she actually didn't realise what had gone on. But that was literally like I couldn't even hide on the floor laughing because happened. I've had bosses like my engineering company has only one toilet there, and I was doing a number 2, and then the boss opens the door, and I'm just stood there like that. That was probably like an image that I'm never ever going to forget. I could hear the whole office roaring after that. So yeah, I've had plenty of things like that happen. It's always a lot of fun happening. Like even at Get a Drip, we're quite relaxed. We're not the culture like the big 4 PwCs. That doesn't happen at Get a Drip. It's more like work hard, play hard, enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I'm getting that feeling about your character. Is it's you're very analytical and want to make sure it's done right before you sort of go full into something and push too hard. But I think that's a good approach to take. But there's a lot of fun in that as well. Like I don't think you're. When you hear that, when you hear the word analyst, sometimes people think stuffy, right? But I'm not seeing that with you at all. No,
I sort of like one of my investors says that if you hire an accountant, you want an accountant that you can't take to a dinner party. Whereas I'm sort of the opposite of that. So I was never destined to be an accountant because it's just not like, sitting still for that amount of time and doing that. Like I have that analytical side to me, but I wouldn't want to be sat behind a desk doing it all day. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
The people part's massive, right? The culture at Get a Drip is a good one. People are happy. We want people to be happy at work. So
yeah, and health actually is quite it's a personal thing, isn't it? Not everybody's quite happy. Not everybody wants to share all of their personal details about their health with everyone. Like hardly anyone does, really, do they? So you've got to be able to build up that rapport, to build that trust with them, I guess. So yeah, really important. All right. So next question then is any proud or inspiring moments?
What for me?
Yeah, for you again in your career.
I think I've always like an averagey type student at school. So like I think I've got 1A, B, C's, D's, E's at school. So then when I got my degree and I failed, keeping to my normal route, I failed my first year. But when I went back, then I sort of got on the bachelor's, did well enough to get on the master's and got a first. So like that was a massive thing.
Oh wow!
I literally worked for like 5 years to get that first. So that was a huge one. Like becoming a chartered accountant, that was a big one. The amount of effort that goes into it, and probably because you don't like doing it as well. The amount of effort because you don't like doing it is a big one. We won an award, British Business Awards, like Health and Wellness Company category of the year. That was amazing. That was the winning award and recognition for the work you do, and having like other people validate that. Like that, you're always proud of those. But I mean, it's when you hear about stuff that our staff do, that's probably when you get the proudest, or like you see customer feedback that's absolutely amazing and praising the staff. That's when you feel the proudest, because it's essentially like you've created this culture and way of working that is fed back to you, that your clients can even feel and embrace how amazing it is. So that hands down beats everything. Customer reviews, or you saved my life, I literally couldn't move for weeks, or you've done this and you've done that, and that stuff is amazing as well. So
yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really nice. And then my last question I wanted to ask is, so you've been in the franchising world a little bit now for the last couple of years. So it'd be interesting to find out from you, if you met somebody who was looking to buy a franchise, what would your one piece of advice be to them?
Number one, make sure it's an accredited franchise. So if it's in the UK, BFA accredited, because it took us a year and a half, maybe a year or more, just to get through that accreditation. So they've been through the rigor of it, and the sort of stat has been tested. So no matter what you're going to do, make sure it's accredited, so it's decent, because there's thousands that probably aren't. So make sure it's accredited. Do your research. Be sure it's something you want to do, because sort of when we're looking at franchisees, my opinion is that a franchisee should be able to run it better than I ever could. Anyone that I employ ever could, because it's their business. They've got to put the effort in. So commitment, making sure you're ready for that commitment. As much as you might think it's a 30 or 40 hour week, it's your business. You're probably going to spend 50, 60, 70 hours doing it. So,
sure.
Making sure you're ready for that commitment. having that sort of growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. Like I can't, not that I can't do it, or I don't want to do this challenge, or I'm not good enough to do this. It has to be the opposite. Like this is an opportunity, I can grow, etc. So having that sort of mindset, positivity as well. Because like we have all sorts of applicants. Some have really detailed business plans, some don't. Some do this and some don't. But the rapport and the positivity always wins through. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Really good advice. So thank you very much for that, Richard, and thank you very much for spending so much time with us today, and for sharing your stories. It's been really good to get to know you and learn about your business, because it's something that's completely new out there.
Have I sold it to you now? Have I sold it to you?
I'm not a lover of needles, and I'm not sure about for me, but I think it could work for my wife. You know, I think it's I'll test it out on her first. That's what I'm saying.
It's always the men that faint as well.
Yeah, I never fainted for anything like that until I had a cannula a while ago. I thought I had appendicitis, had a cannula put in, and yeah, I could feel myself starting to go, getting hot and sweaty, and that's as close as I've come. But yeah, she's it's just like fun for her almost.
Yeah. Well, if she wants to, tell her to pop down. I'm sure we can sort it out.
Fantastic. Thank you once again for your time, Richard, and yeah, take care. Bye bye.
Thank you very much for having me on.